Hello, welcome to this tutorial. My name is Serge Huber, I'm Jahia's CTO, and today I want to show you a little example of how to build an Apple Watch application that connects to Jahia. And for this, we'll actually go through all the steps of building a project for the Apple Watch and actually building the necessary screens and resources to encode to do that. So the first thing we'll do is launch Xcode and start a new project. So here, let's do that. So create a new project here. And what we'll do is Apple Watch applications are actually embedded inside a mobile application. So we need an application to start with. So here we'll just choose a tabbed application. Let me just resize that. There we go. Let's give it a name. So Jahia watch demo. And here we'll choose to program this in Swift, in the Swift language, which is a new application language that you can use for the Apple Watch. The older alternative is Objective-C, but in this example we use the new language. So I'm going to choose a location. This is fine. And here we go. Now we have a basic mobile application, so targeting either iOS on the iPhone or the iPad. Right now, there is no watch application. So we need to add a new target to go and develop for the watch. So we'll choose new target. And here I'm going to say that I'm developing a WatchKit app. So I'll continue, next. And here, basically not much to say. You can choose to include notification scenes or glances. For the moment, we won't be using them, so we won't be adding them. And we can just finish. Okay. And activate the default scheme. So now, basically what we have here is an empty project with a lot of templates that have already been instantiated for us. So we can see there are also tests. There's an extension and the actual WatchKit app. So Apple Watch applications are actually in two parts. One part that is sent to the watch, which is actually just a storyboard and the associated resources. And the other part is an extension that gets installed on the phone that controls all the interactions with the watch. So if we launch this in the simulator, it'll do nothing, but it'll just build the project, and then we can switch to the simulator, and we see that basically we have a blank screen here on the watch. So before we go any further, let's start building our UI. So we'll go to the storyboard and we'll start adding elements. So the first thing I'm going to add here is a group. So this is just layout stuff. There we go. Now inside the group I'm going to add an image and I'm going to add a label. And basically what we're going to do in this demo is that we're going to integrate the watch with Jahia Digital Factory's tasks. So tasks are basically, if I show you here in Jahia, so if I'm logged in as a user and if I go into a profile, you see here that I have my tasks. And right now I have one task that's open and that I want to view. So the idea here is to present a new interface for tasks on the watch so that we can easily check if we have tasks that we have to attend to. So let's go back to the UI designer. So here I'm just going to change this text to tasks. I'm going to add an image. Let me pull that image in. So projects. So I have a cheat sheet here. I'm just going to copy from it. Here we go. And we're going to copy this into our current project. Jahia into the app. And let's just put it there. Okay, now I just have to add the image. There we go. And now I can select the image here. And there we go. And I just need to lay this out a little bit. There we go. And there we go. So we have a basic title. So now what we're going to do is just add a small separator for the title so that we know there. Now what we'll want to do is actually list, just display if there are any tasks. So we'll need another label for that. And here I'll add a default value that says no tasks found. And we'll set it up to, there we go. And that's basically it for the first step. So right now we have a basic UI up for the watch. As you can see, we don't have a lot of space, but that's expected. So you have to limit basically the UI to the essentials of what you want. So now that we have that, we're going to need to basically attach these objects to actual codes. So here we're going to go back to the storyboard and split the assistant view to connect basically these objects. So here what I want to do is simply add an outlet that I'll call tasks label. There we go. And let me just check here. Yep, that's right. Okay, so that's the basic for the UI. So now what we want to do is actually get into the actual code to connect to Jahia. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, here on the awake with context callback, I'm actually going to call two functions. So one of them is going to be called login, and the other one is called get workflow tasks. Okay, so these of course don't exist, so I'm going to start building them. I'm also going to bring in some variables, some constants. So here basically we're going to copy some constants that contain the username, the password, and the user path. You'll see what we're using those for later. And now we're going to start building these functions. So the login first. So this is a call to the Jahia server. Oops, sorry. There we go. And let's do the func get workflow tasks. There we go. Now, we're going to start building the calls to Jahia to do the login. So basically first give it in the login URL. So of course this should be configurable, but for the purpose of simplicity we're going to hard code it. Then we're also going to basically post some data. So here we'll need a request and request string that's actually the contents of the post data. So here you can see these are all documented in the REST API documentation on Jahia.com website. And you see here that we're actually inserting the Jahia username and Jahia password values that are referenced up here. This is nothing about Swift, is that it actually expands these names automatically when you just put them in a string. Now we need to actually build the post data structure that's going to be sent through the network. Oops, sorry. There we go. So we're just creating an object called NSMutable data, and we're adding the post data to it using UTF-8 conversion. Now we're going to actually set up the request object. So here, of course, the first thing is that we need to do a post method, and then we're going to specify the actual types that we want to use. So we're going to say that we're going to accept als output JSON, and we're also going to send it a post that has a content type of the regular XWWW format URL encoded type, which is what we did here up here. Now we also need to set the content length. This is all stuff that is basically creating the request for the server. And finally, we're going to set up the body of the request to the body that we prepared. Okay, so now last thing that we need to do is perform the actual remote call, HTTP call. So here I'm just going to copy this body and walk you quickly through it. But it's basically we're creating objects to send a synchronous request. Of course, this is not the best way of doing it, but it's by far the simplest way for this example, which means that this call will block until the server is answered. And here basically we just print out the status code to make sure that we get at least some kind of logging if anything happens. Okay, now so that's the login. Basically we just created a post request and are sending it to the server. So now let's do the actual call to retrieve the workflow tasks. So this is for this we'll use the new RESTful API of Jahia. This is actually available. I'm sorry, Jahia JCR API. So this is a module that's packaged with Jahia. Here we'll use a trunk because we've added a few niceties to actually include children directly and reduce the size of the output. So basically you could just compile this and deploy it on Jahia, which is I'm not going to do now, but I've already done before to shorten the steps. Okay, so let's go back to the code. So we're actually going to perform the REST API call to retrieve the task. So first thing we need is the URL. So here you'll see I have the URL to my server and the Jahia user pass, and then underneath that we have a node called workflow tasks that actually lists all the tasks that are open for the user. Now I'm going to build the request. Here this is a much simpler request because it's actually a get call instead of a post, and I'm just going to specify the actual output produced by the REST API is haters plus JSON, so we need to specify the HAL plus JSON content type for it to work. Okay, so that's basically my request being set up. Now we need to send the request. So this is basically the exact same code that we had earlier for the login. And now the difference is that here we're going to get a more complex response. So what we're going to get as a response is a JSON response. So if I actually, let me see if I can build this here. So I'm going to actually test this. HTTP localhost. So here we go. This is the request that we're actually going to perform. As you can see, it returns a pretty large JSON data. So we need to parse it to be able to manage it properly inside our UI. So basically what we're going to do here is that we're first, from the data that we got here as an answer, the NS data object, we're simply going to convert it to a string, and then we're going to actually this is no longer needed. This is just in case we wanted to display it, but I don't have that call anymore, so you can ignore that. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to use the NS JSON serialization class from the iOS SDK that converts a JSON NS data object into an actual dictionary object, which contains subset dictionary. Sorry. Okay, so that's basically it for converting to JSON. So as you can see with the built-in stuff, it's pretty straightforward. And now all we need to do is actually go through the dictionary to retrieve the objects that we want to display. So here the thing is that if we simply return the lists of tasks, as you can see here, it's a little bit difficult to read, but there can be a lot of tasks, of subtasks. The reason being that Jahia by default returns all the tasks that are open or closed, but the UI in here on the dashboard only displays the open ones. So what we need to do is check the status of the state of each task to see if they're still open or not. So what we're going to do here is just that. So first we're going to retrieve the children of the node. So basically we retrieve the main workflow tasks node here that is contains children for each task. Then we can just actually display the number of tasks that we found. And then we're going to actually iterate through the tasks to see which ones are still open. So we'll add a little counter here to count the tasks, and then we'll actually iterate through the task children to find the ones that are open. Now here, unfortunately, maybe somebody here can help if you're more familiar with Swift than I am, but it was unfortunately not very easy to walk down the dictionary tree. So you'll see that this is a little bit tedious in terms of code. Hopefully, maybe Apple will correct this soon, but this is basically the simplest way I found of doing this. But it's a bit tedious. Basically, we have to cast each time we go down in the JSON tree. We have to cast to the type that we're actually trying to read. So this is not the let's say cleanest code in the world. So basically here I'm going down for each child of the workflow tasks. I'm going into the properties part, and in the property called state, I'm actually retrieving the value. So here, if we go back here, and if I look for state, you see here that I have a name called state and a value here that's active. So this is actually what we're going to try to read. And here basically what we're going to do is when a task is completed, the value goes to finished. And so here what we're going to do is simply check if the value is not finished, and then we count it as an open task. Okay, so that's basically it for processing the JSON that we got from the server. Now all that's left is actually updating the UI to display the values that we found. So what we're going to do here is basically simply say we're going to check if the so if the open task count equals 0, then the tasks label, we're going to set the text to no tasks waiting, and else tasks label set text. And here basically we can use the Swift expansion open task count. There we go. So now basically that's basically it for our first run. So let's try to see what this does, and hopefully I didn't make too many mistakes. So I'm actually building the project. Okay, here you can see I have the logs here that say 200, 200. These are the status codes of each request, and it says it's found one task. So let's see what happened in the UI. And you see here that basically it's worked. We actually display the message, you have one task waiting. So here we'll probably want to improve this a little bit. Just say that we want to display this. We'll make this a little bit larger. And we'll say that we want to allow for maybe 2 or 3 lines. Let's say 2 lines. Not too large. There we go. Okay. And maybe just to make things a little bit cleaner, we'll change the output to say that if open task count equals 1, we'll want to actually do something a little bit cleaner and say yeah, there we go. We're just using a different message if we have one task or multiple ones. So let's test that out quickly. There we go. And while we're at it, let's quickly do another correction on the UI just to center this. It'll look better. Oops. Oh, that's interesting. That should work. Oh no, sorry. There we go. Okay, so now what would be really nice is to be able to do something once we see how many tasks we have. So what we're going to do now is add a button to the UI. So let's do this quickly. So here I'm just going to put this button here, and I'm going to call it View Tasks. And of course, we're not going to want to actually necessarily view the tasks on the phone, on the watch, because it could be a little bit complex to build UIs for everything. But what'd be really cool is to be able to actually open the tasks on the phone. So that we can benefit from the bigger UI that's on the phone. So this is now possible in the latest beta that Apple provided, and I'm going to show you how this actually works. So before we go any further, we're going to need to connect this to our code, and basically what we're going to do is go back up here and connect the button to the code. So here I'm going to first build an outlet which is called View Tasks button. There we go. So that'll allow us to access the button object, and then we're also going to create an action that's going to be triggered when we actually press the button. So here I'm going to change, say action, and say view tasks. There we go. Now all I need to do is actually populate this action. So here what we're going to do is we're actually going to tell the watch that we want to open the parent application, so the application, the full-blown application running on the phone. And here we do this using the onParent application, and we're going to pass it some a dictionary that just contains basically a view task key and then the name of the user that we need to display the tasks for. So that's basically, this is hard-coded to root, but we could of course change it to use the variable we had before. And here basically you also can provide callbacks to for in case of replies or errors, but in this case we're just gonna provide empty bodies. Okay, so all that's remaining is actually implementing something to happen at the level of the parent application. So in order to do that, what we need to do is implement a new method, a new function, sorry, that is actually going to be called from the watch. So in order to do this, we're just going to add here a new function at the bottom. And basically it's called handle watchKit extension request. And here we see we have the user info object that is being passed with basically the key view tasks and the root. So here what we're going to do is we're going to do something very simple. We're just going to actually dispatch this to the built-in browser of the phone and tell it to open the dashboard of the user. So this is what we've done here. We're opening the URL and specifying the path on the server to the user dashboard. Fortunately, we don't have a way to directly link it to the tasks sub panel, but that's something that could be improved also. Okay, so let's see if this all looks good, if we did everything, and we'll test this. So now we have this new button. And we're building the project. Okay, and here you see we have a one task waiting, and we're actually going to press the button here. And there we go. So actually what happened here is this is the watch, this is the phone, and by clicking the view task button here, we actually told the watch to send the message to the phone and to send this to the application that's connected to the phone, to the watch, sorry, and this redirected to the browser. Now, of course, this can be improved in a lot of ways, but let's just check that if, for example, we do some modifications. So let's go back to the Jahia page, and let's do some modifications somewhere. I'm going to modify a page, let's say the activities page. I'm just going to update here. Update 1, save. And you can see up here I have one waiting task. So this is the one that I see on my phone. So what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to publish this page, and I'm going to use the Jahia workflow to publish this page. And basically you see here that my tasks have switched to 2. So now if I go back to my project and I restart it, you can see here that in the logs it actually did print out 2 tasks found, and you can see here that it says on the watch that I have 2 tasks waiting. So this concludes basically our quick demo of how to build an Apple Watch application that connects to a Jahia server to retrieve personalized data. Of course, there's a lot of things that could be improved, but I think this pretty much shows the wiring that you can build pretty easily using the server and the SDK. There are a lot of things that would be really nice. For example, having a push to notify the watch that a new task is being sent out. So this, of course, is something that we've looked at, but is currently not available in the simulator. And as the watch is not yet available, it's very difficult to demonstrate. The only thing that can be done in the SDK is to build a sample notification. So this is a hard-coded JSON file that you can then provide to the SDK to simulate a notification, but you can't actually send a notification directly to the simulator, which is a shame, because it would be really nice for demonstrating integrations like this. So that's it. I hope you've enjoyed this quick tutorial. And if you have any questions, feel free to look at the comment section, the description section of the video, or to reach out to us on our website, jahia.com. Thank you very much for your attention.